Hi to Fiona McLean. Thanks so much for having a chat with me. We've been planning this chat for a while since
We have.
your recognition last year of the Future Ready Innovators Award, and various life has just gotten in the way, but we finally made it. So really happy to have this chat with you. Maybe we could just start by introducing yourself and your role.
So I'm Dr. Fiona McLean. So I'm an e-learning designer with WSP, which is a engineering services company within Australia.
Mhm.
So we have 6,000 employees in Australia and about 66,000 worldwide.
Mhm.
So while I work just for the learning and development team just in Australia, um, and part of my job is upskilling all of the subject matter experts. So so I've been in the role for about 13 months, but my
Mhm.
background is in teaching and learning.
Mhm.
And my PhD is in online learning and communities of practice.
Mhm. Nice. And I think we initially met many years ago through the Chaos Pilot
We
masterclass.
certainly did, and I actually use that a lot in my work still now. So,
Good to know. That's great.
mm,
Thanks. And so I remember sending a congratulations and a message when I saw the award that you received last year, the Future Ready Innovators Award. And so yes, that's kind of I felt when we chatted about it, the problem you're trying to solve and how you went about it could be really interesting, bring some really interesting insights to other people who might be in the same situation. So maybe you could kick us off by telling us a bit, what was the problem that you were grappling with?
so one of the problems that we had as a company was that we had a lot of knowledge in house that we were losing to either retirement or people moving on.
Mm-hmm.
So it's knowledge that's built up over years, but it's not really been effectively passed on.
Mm,
So part of my position when I got it was upskilling the masses, if you like. So the mass upskilling of the subject matter experts
mm,
within the business. So there's something like about
mhm,
5,000 engineers. And
mm,
engineers are a bit of a special breed. They think a bit differently, and certainly they're not used to sharing knowledge.
mm,
And the knowledge that they share, they tend to share how they learn. And
mm,
depending on when they went to university,
mm,
um, could um, could affect how they share knowledge.
mhm,
So we wanted to stop that knowledge bleed,
mhm,
and we had to find effective ways of using our resources.
mm,
So the resources that we have in house.
mm. Yeah, I imagine there's a lot of tacit knowledge, right, that people have from their years of experience that,
Yeah.
yeah,
And just
wanting
like
to.
things like lessons learned from a particular project. So
Mhm,
we do a lot of the major projects like the tunnels, the Melbourne uh, uh, rail replacement
mhm,
stuff and things like
yeah,
that. So a lot of that kind of stuff we have varying different projects.
mhm,
So we project manage some, we do environmental information
mhm,
about some, we
mhm,
do like all sorts of different stuff.
mhm, mhm,
So I'm not a subject matter in all those things, but I
mm,
am an expert in how we design learning.
mhm,
So
mhm,
that was about how I can pass on my knowledge.
mm. Yeah, great. Okay, so um, potentially some other challenges that other organizations are facing, the knowledge bleed, how to help people
Mm,
turn their tacit knowledge into explicit knowledge that can be shared with others, and how to upskill people who have the knowledge but not the maybe background in learning or the background in teaching to kind of effectively use those resources
yeah,
and
yeah,
pass them on, because there's only one of you, right? So how do you
yeah.
kind of how do you kind of share those that knowledge and skills around? So how did you How did you go about approaching it?
So what I did was I used my background in education, and I designed a step-by-step process for the subject matter experts to follow. Um, and I researched each step, even though I've got like explicit knowledge on how to do all of these steps. I just wanted to make sure that I had the latest, information and research and stuff like that. So I created an interactive toolkit. So it's actually step by step, you can follow it along. It's got they can access it any time. It's got downloadable guides, it's got video. It's like, got all the elements that they'll need to be able to create a piece of learning. And I did it broadly, not just for e-learning, which although my position description is e-learning, it's about all learning and about upskilling them on all the elements that they need to think about, rather than just go, I need to teach them this. This is not what I'm just going to stand here and chalk and talk, or create a PowerPoint and just talk to it, kind of thing. So, and one of the main reasons why is like the 5,000 subject matter experts that we need to upskill, because there was only 4 of us. So there's one e-learning person, and we've got 3 other learning designers. So for that many people, like we can't do anything. If something complex, then we'll help. And I'll help design. So I do consulting with like groups when there's a big piece of learning. But then they'll have subject matter experts design each of the small parts.
Gotcha.
So and I teach them how to create that. So and then I work with our team on how to spread that learning, how to deliver it.
Nice. So it's bit of a DIY approach for those maybe more.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you like, I'll just share.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Share the site that I made.
Yep.
Share the right screen.
Okay, so this was the
so this is the toolkit that I created. So it's designed specifically for us, and it's interactive. So it's held on our intranet. It's interactive in that each of these widgets is a step that they should follow in the design, develop, and deliver pathway of how to design any specific part of learning. So somebody had actually already started to create it when I got there, had the idea, but I turned it around and used my background in teaching. So I've actually taught at all levels, from kindergarten to master's level. And I've done a lot of course design. So I've been in education for 15 years. So I just based a lot of it on educational theory, but I don't actually explain the theory in the thing, because they're engineers, they don't need to know that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And most people who are designing learning, unless they're a learning professional, don't really need to know the theory behind it. They just need to know, this is what I need to do. And particularly the engineers are really time poor. So it's really important to make sure that I don't bog them down with too much information.
Right. Keep it really practical.
Yeah. So what I did is I just created clear steps, kind of like a list. I wrote easy to follow guides, again, based in theory. I did a lot of research and got the best practices. I created videos, so it's multimodal. So if they want to just look at the video, they can. It's all the same information, just presented in a number of different ways. And then I put in tips and tricks and links and things like that. So things like the identifying objectives. So I've got some information here, some key points to consider. I've got more information that will open up over the top, including, like, you know, Bloom's taxonomy. So like just the framework of it, but in the learning guide that I have here, I cover that, but I also cover the words. So what kind of words at each level. So and, like, you know, why learning objectives are important. And then I've got a link to a learning objective creator, which is one of our tools. I've got a video and the learning guide. So each of the steps, each of the steps has at least, you know, those elements.
And maybe, I was just going to say, maybe for those of us who don't have the engineering background, could you give maybe just a couple of examples that people might relate to, of the kind of different types of learning or knowledge that people were wanting to, or that they've created with?
So some of the things that the people have created have been, so I've had people in HR create things like how to do an interview, how to ask appropriate questions. And another person in our team created videos on how to have difficult conversations when it comes to KPIs and things like that, because we have a system that manages that, but the managers have to have those difficult conversations. And so we use an AI video creation tool, which is one of the tools that we've got, and it has two avatars that can have a chat together, and like, you know, this is how you have this actual interview. So it's like an insider's look kind of thing.
Like a demonstration.
So yeah, and we've used it to, how do I use this new software, how to design specific, like there's a whole series of stuff in the water group that water engineers have used about designing specific things. So new criteria and things like that. So what I try and get people to do is actually create things in a number of different ways. And I'm trying to get people to move away from creating, just recording an hour-long boring presentation. So I try to get, so we've got tech talks, which are like our version of TED Talks, but at more technical. But what I've got is, instead of having hour or 2 hour long technical talks, I've suggested they split it up into like a overview and then a deep dive. So only the technical people need to know the deep dive, and only and maybe everybody else just gets to do the 8-minute one. So we're trying to reduce it down to be more bite-sized pieces. We also do e-learning, which we're calling e-learning bites, so just mini modules. Or you can create a series of those, and we can put those in our LMS just as a series, rather than people having to put aside an hour of their time to create something. So I've also had the legal team, so wanting to do stuff about contracts and things like that. So making sure separate elements are in contracts. So I've worked with them to use Chaos Pilot to design the larger piece of work, and looked at what are the and going back with what are the learning objectives, who's the audience for each one, how are you going to deliver each one, and then thinking about that, and then how do we structure the learning. So looking at mind mapping and things like that. So here I've got more information on using Simon Sinek's, golden circles to keep the why, at the center of the learning. And I know that's a very chaos pilot thing to do, making sure the why is the most important. And then how are you going to split it up? So again, I've got an example of, and I made it just the plain basic example, not engineering related. So nobody can say, doesn't really relate to me. But looking at, so I explain the must, should, and could know knowledge and how you might split that up. And then I've done this color-coded one of how you might split it up into separate learning bites. So that, and then a learning path, which might have these 4 elements. Right. So that people can, like, you know, so it's really clear and manageable what they're expected to do and how to do that. So I've got
structure is really helpful.
Yeah, mind mapping templates for them. So the exact one that I've used, plus also a Word one if they prefer just to have it in Word. And again, I've got how to structure the learning and how to mind map. So different learner guides that they can download and keep for later. Or they can always come back to this. It's on our main intranet page and just go to that specific step. So they don't have to follow the path. They can just go to a specific step. And I talk about creating assessment and really talk about not just like formative assessment, not just summative assessment, but formative assessment too. So we do it a lot in Chaos Pilot, the check-ins, the knowledge checks and things like that. So I've got more information there on how to do it. And again, a little bit about backwards design, just so that they can get the image and the picture of why we're designing things this way without too much detail. And then an example of some kinds of assessments that you might use, either in face-to-face or virtual or in e-learning. So there's a couple of examples for each and some just tips for writing good questions. So things like that. When you're writing questions, what might they be like? When are you going to give feedback and things like that? And again, the video just on how to do that. So so basically,
I know those videos, sorry, were those videos that you made yourself?
Yeah. So I'll just click on one. Sorry, I probably haven't shared the
audio. No, that's fine. Just
audio. But anyway, it's just basically explaining how to use that. Here's how to structure the learning. What are the key points, and making sure that with each key point you cover the theory, the practice, and the application. So really structuring that learning so it flows, and so each piece of knowledge builds on the next one. So I created all these using an avatar because I didn't want my face on there, and also using the software that we're using is Colossian, and it works really well in that they have avatar. You can change the
characteristics.
Yeah, you can change the avatars. You can change the accents. So and you can change the language. So I can download one in Japanese and upload that if I need to. So it's really helpful. So each of those, so for each step, there's also, like, you know, I make sure that there's a video and a user guide, and creating accessible material. So it's really important. We're trying to move into creating accessible materials and making sure that we, you know, we walk the walk. So we need to produce all our materials to be accessible before we expect other people to produce them. So, and some of them have got examples. And again, I was talking about how we'd have theory, then practice, then application. So this is just like a, you know, again, water filtration, just a thing that I made up, but made sure that I figured out how, how we can do that. How to create the accessible materials, and then just presentation skills. So the basics of slide design. So although we've got a in-house, like, you know, template, one of the things is, one of our colors is red, and it's got a lot of red in it. And as a learning professional, you'd know red is really harsh. It's not good for accessibility, the contrast, but also making sure that that, like, there's other colors that we can use. So I talk a lot about that in you know, more information, you know, just some of the hits, tips and tricks. And then here we also we've got how to create e-learning with Easy Generator. So Easy Generator is the e-learning tool that we're using, and we found it to be amazing. And it's similar to Articulate Rise. It's just like a drag and drop, cut and paste. If you can use PowerPoint, you can use Easy Generator, and you can create e-learning, interactive, embed things, like really simple to use. And I'm currently managing all the global licenses for us for Easy Generator. So
and what have you really liked about it? What was that, your
the
choice?
simplicity, and that anybody can use it.
Yeah.
But again, one of the things that I always do, we've got about 70 Australian authors, and when I sign them up and give them a license, we've got a community of practice as well, just in teams. But I also make sure that I get them to send the first one through me. So somebody from our team will give it a look over and make sure it's got the flow, make sure that it meets our standards before we put it up on our LMS. So not just any information goes up there. And then they also, before they submit it to me, they need to have it checked by another subject matter expert. So somebody else who understands how to do it.
Right. Yeah. No, that's great. So you've got that. I mean, it's a learning process for them as well, right? But it's also, you got that quality control from a learning perspective, but also from a content technical perspective.
Yeah, exactly. And it's really got some great features that are really, you know, it's got AI assistance in building, but I prefer to use it myself to create things from scratch. That's just my personal thing. But sometimes when somebody comes to me and they want to create a heap of learning stuff, what I do is I sit down with them and map it out, and like pull it apart. So there's a huge lot of digital engineering resources that we created. I think there's something like 18 modules. And so for each one, he had just a PowerPoint with words. So we looked at, and then he had a case study for each one. So we looked at structuring the learning, so that was an introduction, then the case study saying what is the problem, and then, you know, all the information, all the learning, and then at the end, so this is the solution. This is how we solve this problem using that information. So really making sure that the learning flowed through. So I think one of the things that whenever you're trying to upskill the masses, you want to make it as simple as possible. But you can't expect them to get it right first time. So providing that follow-up, whether it's in groups or individually. So I haven't had too much problem where there's been, like, you know, a big glut of things. But, you know, I've looked through. So for the digital engineering one, I actually sat down and created the first one with him. Took us 2 hours to create it, using all the information that he had, then not including the video. So then he created the videos. So the case study he put into videos, front and back, and then the rest he like modified. So it took him a couple of days to, you know, play around with it. It's a new tool. Play around with it, put in some bells and whistles, and then he sent it to me. I went, you know, it was really great, really great. So, you know, those kinds of things make it really, easy. And one of the things with Easy Generator is the support. So they've got 24/5 support from about lunchtime Australian time on Monday through till lunchtime on Saturday, kind of thing. And they provide, and it's a person, not a bot. So you'll actually talk to somebody, generally reply within about 2 minutes in those times. So if you're up at midnight, like trying to finish something off, there's somebody at all, because it's global, there's somebody in all regions to answer your questions. And when they're asleep in Europe, they're awake in Asia, kind of thing. So you know, it's really helpful in that way. So that's basically how I went about it. The tips and tricks, the hints, the templates, the user guides, and the videos. So I created all those elements and then had to link them all together and created it. So because it's a bit more complex, it was created in Storyline, so which is a bit of a more complex tool. But you could probably do something similar with you know, a website creation tool kind of thing. So I just use that because that's what we were using. So, but you know, you might be able to use something else. So,
internal tools people are already creating. Awesome. So once you had that that toolkit and those resources and everything kind of all ready to launch, what happened next?
So so I launched it with the people who were already using Easy Generator, because we started the Easy Generator project before the toolkit was finished. So but then I also went out to various business groups and actually showed it to them and like demonstrated. And like with the legal group, I had 12 of them in there. I explained to them how to walk through it. I walked them through it. And then we talked about structuring the learning and things like that, and how they might do. So we had some follow-up meetings, and then each of them are going to, in their group, author something. So some of them are going to be e-learning, some of them are still going to be virtual presentations, because they need that feedback type thing. They need the question and answer. And some things I suggest to people, well, you might want to originally create it in like a virtual meeting, but then move to a module for new people starting and things like that, answering the questions that were asked in the virtual session.
Oh, nice.
So record it so that you've got those questions. And you know, really use that to inform more. So the problem with such a big company is we have a lot of staff coming and going. We have 100 new graduates each year. So when they come in, they also have to be upskilled on all the different like tools that we use. There's many different engineering programs and software and things that they use. So we have to upskill them on each of those. And rather than just running continual workshops, creating those in a tool like Easy Generator, and then having them up, and then putting a pathway so that they go, okay, I watch this, I do this course, and then I do this course, and then I do this course, and then I should be able to have all the tools to complete my job. So depending on their designation when they come in.
Yeah. And so they access that all that through your LMS. So that kind of
done. So the learning pathways, but again, most LMSs will have an ability to group courses together. So whether it's in a folder, like, you know, or assigning specific courses in a specific order. Sometimes it doesn't matter the order. Sometimes it does. So if again, building on the must know, could know, should know, should know, could know.
I know what you mean.
You know what I mean. So building on that pathway, making sure that, you know, the most important parts they know first, and they know, you know, what they need to know. So,
and that was, and I love that idea though of the of that iterating, right? So as you said, like maybe, you know, recording a virtual live session first of all, finding the reactions, finding the points that were clear, that weren't, the questions, etc., and then building that into your eLearn asynchronous version. I was curious, is there any with the modules, is there any opportunity for questions? Is there any through the platform or no?
So not through our LMS, and we're changing LMS next year, so that's another whole kettle of fish. But I've no clue what's going to happen there. But at the moment, what I suggested was that, particularly for people like the legal team, is having like a group of e-learnings first, then the workshops, so they can ask questions about any of the e-learning that they've created. So, you know, getting people, so the learnings that they were creating were specifically for project managers or project directors, or like those higher executive people who you can count on to actually have done the work before before they come in.
Do a bit of a flipped classroom kind of approach.
Flipped learning kind of thing. So although I don't use those words, I explain, you know, better use of your time, making good use of the time that you've got, because they talked about in another section, they talked about having 2 or 3 hour sessions. I said, well, why don't you just make at least one of those e-learning, so they can do that over a couple of days, and then have maybe 1 or 2 2-hour sessions that you can facilitate. And one of the other groups, because our offices are spread out all over Australia, one of the other groups are designing a boot camp. And what I suggested for them was having the presentations facilitated by an expert in the room. So there might be a room in Sydney, a room in Melbourne, and a room in Brisbane. And then there's an expert in there who can facilitate and make sure that the engagement's still there. So you're not flying everybody into one particular area. So in the past, that might have been everybody fly to Melbourne for 3 days. Whereas this is going to be, okay, well, we're just going to do a 1 day plus online stuff. So they're creating some of the stuff, I think it was previously 2 days maybe. So they're doing some stuff online, and then I'll have 1 day facilitated things that need that interaction and things like that. So it's choosing what you put in facilitated versus, you know, asynchronous. So making sure that it's clear what needs to be done first, and then, you know, so that they've got the theory before they talk about the application. So, and using that time to really hone in on our processes and our application, what it means for us at WSP or at your particular, you know, your particular company. So
yeah, no, I love that. And I love, you know, I love that example you gave of, well, yes, you know, the theory or the model behind that is a flipped learning or flipped classroom approach, but kind of how do you translate that to business, right? To go, well, actually what that means for you is a better use of your time, a better use of your expertise, the quality of the conversation interaction going up. Yeah, I think that's so important, and it's something I think often we get a bit lost sometimes in L&D and education, right? When we're trying to translate, we get a bit caught up in our own technical expertise sometimes, and not being able to translate that to the client, in this case internal. Were there other examples, other kind of ways you found that to make some of those, you know, that education theory
well, so some of the tips and traps that I had was like, you know, making sure that it's applicable across a range of areas, because like while some people might be engineers, some people might not be. So, and engineering is a very big jargon, like heavy industry. So there's like, even I'm still going, oh, what does that mean? What does, like, you know, like this acronym mean? I'm not sure. Don't know what it is. I had to do something yesterday and it was IT related, and they're asking me all these questions. I'm going, I don't understand. It could be in French for all I know. Don't get it. I don't know what that word that means. Like, you know, I even tried Googling and it didn't help. So thinking of the audience and making sure that all my resources are in plain English, in simple, as simple as I can get it. So so yes, it's still technical, but it's just in plain English, so that they really understand. And one of the tips that I would give is getting someone who's not in learning to go through it. So I got people who were not in learning to walk through the toolkit, see if they could understand, see if by going through that process that they could understand on their own without me having to facilitate a workshop on it. Happy to facilitate workshops, but I don't want to facilitate everybody that goes through. The whole idea is it's a DIY thing. And another thing that really helped me in creating the videos was using an AI generation tool, AI tool to generate it. So I didn't use like generative AI like ChatGPT. I might have, for a couple of the handouts, thought, I don't know where to start, and just put that in, and took the, you know, keywords. Then went, oh yes, of course, I forgot that step, kind of thing.
Had to structure from it.
Because I did try it for one, and what it came up with was just like, woe to the no. Like it was
hallucinating.
It was just like, yeah, right, okay. I don't know what planet you got that information from, but not relevant to what I consider best practice. So we used the AI tool, and it saved a lot of time, because when you're creating videos, and I know you would have created many videos, if you're creating it yourself or screencasting or something like that, you get 5 minutes to a 5-minute video, you get 4 minutes and 50 seconds in, and you go, oh crap, I made that mistake, like cut that bit out, and then trying to get that, it doesn't flow well. So really making sure that how we create those videos, it really saved me a lot of time. I created backgrounds, I chucked the avatar in, I wrote my script, and I put it in, and it generated the videos. So I could generate videos in 5 minutes.
Wow. And what was the name? Was it Colossian?
Colossian, yeah. So COLOSSYAN. So yeah, that's just like a fact that expensive, but a fantastic tool that and they've got different levels. So we're on an enterprise license, but they've got different levels. So you can I think it's about $30 US dollars a month or something like that.
Okay.
And you can create videos.
Saving you all that time.
And they started with only a couple of Australian voices. And I negotiated with them, and now we've got 8 female and 8 male Australian voices. Because one of the things, like being a global company, one of the important things is to not leave your learners guessing if this is an Australian resource or an international resource. So our head office is in Canada, so people like automatically think it's come from Canada or it's come from America, because a lot of the resources come from there. So having an Australian voice just takes that question out of it. And, you know, you can, again, just transfer it with the click of a button to French Canadian. And all you have to do is change out your, like any images or any documents. You just need to change those out. So again, both of the tools. So the main tools that we use in this is our Tech Talks, which is just like a webinar platform. Our Easy Generator, which we use for the e-learning creation, and Colossian, which is the AI video creation tool. So other than that, people use what they've got. They might use just the PowerPoints, and I talk a bit about, you know, how to make it engaging, and with things like the interactions like think, pair, share, and jigsaw activities, how they can put activities and interactions into even just a presentation. So yeah, so it's really you know, got great traction within the business, and as you said, I got an award for it, which was great. So yeah, how really surprised me.
Yeah, no, very well deserved, I'd say. And so how did it so you said you started kind of with those people who were already using it, Easy Generator, and then I remember last time we talked, kind of you hadn't done any big kind of it was kind of going organically, but yeah, what's happened
at the start of the year? I sent it out to all the business groups, and you know, part of my KPIs for this year are making sure that I upskill those people, and making sure that you know, anybody who wants to access it can access it. So we put it up on our learning and development intranet, and we have a weekly newsletter, so we put it in that you know, a few times. But I also keep, you know, reminding people and reaching out to people, and if somebody comes to me about something, then I go, oh, and have you heard about this? So I actually had a meeting the other day with our comrades in New Zealand and in Asia. So I showed them, and you know, so they're and I'm happy to share it with anybody, because it's, you know, WSPIP, because I did it at work. So even though it's my knowledge, it's, you know, that's what I'm here for. I'm here to share my knowledge. So happy to share it globally. We're just looking at how we can do that. And so it was shared while I was overseas with the global L&D meetings. So they meet once a month. everybody from around the globe. Apparently it's at 2:30 a.m. in New Zealand time, because it's at a time that's convenient for Europe or something like that. So anyway, not very convenient for us, but we're changing. So our meetings, we have our own meetings as well. So looking at how we can support each other.
And then how's been the reaction and the uptake from those subject matter experts that you were
Like
designing?
really well, like especially the latter groups that I've worked with. And I created a tech talk on how to create a tech talk. So it's only I think it's about 10 minutes. So just explaining to people how to use this tool to design your learning. So so even though it specifically talks about creating tech talks, it can be used across anything. So so then I've also got links to that on the learning and development site. So so the idea was to create something that ran itself, if you like, that we didn't need to continually, you know, refresh.
Yeah. Yeah, great. And have you found any because I imagine that there's a that's depending on the person, right? That on the subject matter expert, that there's a, you know, everybody, no matter what the role, always has a feeling of being time poor, right? And not enough time. And at the same time, you know, generally people like to share what they know and be recognized, you know, for that knowledge and expertise that they bring. Yeah, I was wondering, how did you find, you know, that was there any resistance or pushback from people saying, oh, I don't have time to create that resource or to share, or, you know?
So one of the ways I sell it is explaining that planning will make the learning more effective. So making sure you do those steps before, while you might think it's a waste of time. Why do I need to analyze the audience? Why do I need to create you know, a learning outcome? Like, you know, it's a 15-minute thing, because then it focuses you and you're able to focus and get across your message better. So so I talk about using your time better. So, and as a way of, like, rather than having to once a month have a new webinar on the same thing, spending, okay, it might take you 2 hours, but it's 2 hours you've created it once. When you need to update it, it takes like 2 minutes. It doesn't take you another 2 hours. It takes you 2 minutes to create it, to make that change. If there's a change in legislation or something like that, a new you know, a new process that we're using, add that bit in. That'll take you 2 minutes, download it, send it back to us, and we'll upload it. So, and generally we can get it uploaded to the LMS like the same day. And so people are just stoked when they actually go through the process. They go, oh, well, that was actually so much easier. And then word of mouth spreads. I heard it from Mary, who created this, that, you know, you've got this tool. Can you tell me about it? And so I'm happy to tell them. I said, I'm happy to show you. Is there anybody else in your team who might like to know? And then we create like a sharing session where I'll show them how to use it, and it'll generally be about half an hour. Then they'll play with it, maybe another half an hour. So sometimes I split it up into 2 sessions. So for the boot camp one, all the people who were going to create the learning, I split it up into, okay, I'll walk through the first part of the toolkit. So just up to create materials. And then when you're ready, then I'll talk about the the delivering and the presentation and the things like that, because you don't need to know that right now. What you need to know is to create that. So giving them, you know,
just in time.
just in time learning and that kind of thing. So that's the benefit of it, is you can use the just in time pieces. I'm just going to use this bit. I just need to know how to do this part. I can't remember what she said about learning outcomes. I'll go back and look at that bit. Or download the guide, or like just watch the video, which is the videos are like 2 or 3 minutes. So I'll just watch that video. So that's the whole idea behind it, is like, you know, that just in time, how can I make the best use of my time and make the best use of the resources that I've got.
Yeah, great. And in terms of the content that SMEs are generating, does it happen in a, is it like a push pull, or bottom up, top down, all at the same time? Is it kind of individuals deciding, oh, that's a question that a lot of people have, that I'm answering that question repeatedly, so I'm going to put this in a tech talk or whatever? Is there
so there's a couple of different things
people are requested?
There's a couple of different ways. So sometimes people are requesting, like, oh, you know, oh, Bob's going to retire in a month, and he's got all this information. What do we need him to explain to us? And then I'll work with Bob and, you know, show him what is it that you want to provide. After each project, generally there's a presentation on what went well, learnings from that. So there's that kind of thing. And then things like new processes and things like that. So or problems that arise that we've got to find a solution to. So the legal team at the moment are looking at contracts, because we're having an issue with some contracts going through that are not worded properly, which means it costs us money. So, you know, that kind of, can't remember what they called it, but so that kind of issue with, like, oh, that's not working, so how can we fix that? So I think we need blah blah blah. So they came to us with a list. So the boss of the legal team came to us with the list. I want to create all this learning, can you help me? So we had a meeting with the whole team, and we talked about, you know, what they wanted to achieve, how they wanted to achieve it, and then we met with her individually to go through that more high level stuff, so she can think about it, because it was really ideas out of her head of what she wanted. She knew the problems because she'd had the meetings with the executive and stuff like that. So so really looking at, you know, how to solve problems, or, you know, learnings from a particular tool kind of thing, or learnings from, you know, a project. So, you know, once you've done the design of the new airport, what is it that we learned? What can we use for next time? Next time we need to design an airport, or next time we need to do a ecological survey or something like that. You know, what are some things that we learned? Like, oh, I found that this worked better. So rather than keeping that knowledge to themselves, the business units are really encouraged to share that knowledge.
Yeah, great. And how and are you able to track as well, I guess, like the usage and any kind of feedback from the other people, the content consumers, I guess, rather than creators?
So we generally get feedback from our e-learning, and I've had a lot of feedback from managers, like, you know, really great feedback from, you know, that's worked really well. They really appreciated the way that you simplified. So simplifying what I need to do. So whether that's showing them the designing learning toolkit to start with,
Yeah.
so that they can, so because it might be intimidating just getting it in an email and going, I don't know what that is, I'm not going to even look at it.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
actually created a video introducing it as well. So, and explaining about it. So it's just a couple of minutes. So
Yeah.
we sent that out as an email and put it up on the front page of the internet. This is here. You know, if you want to have a look at it, if you need more information, contact me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Sorry.
You're right. Yeah, great. Amazing. Yeah, it sounds yeah, there's so many, you know, as we kind of said way at the beginning, right? That problem of knowledge bleed and how to make, you know, effective use of limited resources. And that and one thing I really love as well is that combination of the different expertise, right? Like their technical expertise in whatever area it happens to be,
Yeah.
engineering, HR, legal, and yeah, kind of multiplying your educational learning expertise through
Yeah. And
course.
just trying to make the most of me as a resource
Mm.
in creating this, that
Yeah.
I can get to more people than I can physically get
Yeah,
to.
yeah, yeah.
So it's all about, you know, intelligent use of time kind of thing. So like
Yeah,
really making the most of whatever you've got, how
yeah,
you can. And
yeah.
it's not specifically designed for engineers. So it's designed for anybody who
Anyone. Yeah.
creates any learning.
Mm.
So whether it's a 10-minute presentation, a 5-minute e-learning, you
Mm.
know, any of those kinds of things, that
Yeah.
the process is still the
Mm.
same.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Content
so
agnostic.
yeah, while it's called a toolkit, it's really a process,
Mm.
and the toolkit is part of that process kind
Yeah.
of thing.
Yeah.
So, and the links
Yeah,
and
no,
those
no.
kind of
And I
things.
love how you've obviously been able as well to really translate, you know, your deep, you know, theoretical educational knowledge, teaching knowledge background into, you know, language that resonates with them, obviously, into the so what, right? For them, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
save
that's
you
right.
time.
Giving them the so what. They don't
Yeah.
need to know the why. Like in
Yeah.
sometimes they need to,
Hmm.
but they need to know it in a logical, this is the why in simple words.
Hmm.
I know the theory, but this is
Yeah.
the why, and
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
what you need to do. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, amazing.
really, yeah. Thanks.
Well done. And any final I guess words of wisdom or thoughts you'd leave with anyone who's listening and maybe considering doing something similar in their own organization?
Just think about simplifying things into steps, like
Mm-hmm.
little baby, like chunking the
Yeah.
learning.
Mm-hmm.
So I chunk the learning so that they will chunk the learning for other people.
Yeah.
And I talk about chunking the learning
Mm-hmm.
in there, and talk about breaking it into
Mm-hmm.
pieces and like key points. So from the topic to subtopics to subtopics to key points,
Mm-hmm.
like really breaking it down and making sure that each of those has all the information.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't, if you just look at it from somebody who, I just want to share how I ran this project.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't break it down that way, you tend to just give surface information and miss really important points. So I did this, and then I did this, and then I did this. But I did this, I used this, and this is how I applied it. And this is what worked well. So similar to what we did in the structure of this interview, like, you know, really looking at all of those points for each part makes it easier to digest.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what we want is effectiveness. So really making sure that and I'll give you an example. I looked at one of the videos, one of the tech talks, and it said it was 42 minutes. I went, oh, I'll just have a look and see what it was like. And the first 10 minutes was somebody eating their lunch in a room. Going, never heard of like cutting, like trimming the video. Anyway, I'm just like, yeah, right. And I just kept trying to skip forward to when it was actually something relevant.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
about 10 minutes in, and I'm just going, oh, okay. So that
Yeah.
was right at the start of my journey, because I wanted to see what was
Mm,
happening
right.
so that I could
Starting.
then had a place to start.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, it sounds like it's come a long way from that. So that's
Yeah, yeah, definitely has, definitely
that's
has.
awesome.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
No, amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time and our joint persistence
No worries.
in making this happen. Yeah, I think yeah, so many great yeah, insights and tips and yeah, hopefully inspiration for other people to do something similar that would work in their
Yeah,
organization. I
yeah.
really,
And
really,
it will work across any organization, really.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
learning is learning no matter where it is.
Thanks so
So
much, Fee. Really appreciate it.
that's all right. No worries, Zoe. Catch you later.